Hello everyone. So in this video today, we are going to be doing a recap of the URL-to-text product hunt launch. I'm going to be talking about how it went, what ranking it got to on the day, and then we're going to be talking about the feedback that we received from customers, users, and then we're going to be talking about where do we go from here. Now, many of you who have started following me recently on Twitter or Product Hunt, you may not be aware of my background, so let me try to give you a quick intro to who I am. I was a senior software engineer for many years. Then about a decade ago, I started doing side projects on the side. Initially, I did kind of SEO and affiliate marketing projects by launching sites with WordPress and stuff like that. And I did see some success with that and eventually even got a site up to 10K monthly recurring revenue during the pandemic before it later crashed, actually. But soon after that, I started getting into building software, right? What I was doing for a day job, but doing it on the side. And I quickly launched what eventually became known as Notifier for Reddit. I launched it on Product Hunt several years ago, and it had a pretty good Product Hunt launch, getting up to product number 2 or 3 of that day. I can't remember exactly which, but it got, as you can see here, 354 upvotes. That caused an initial surge of traffic, of course, and actually generated several $100s in monthly recurring revenue and a lot of great feedback from some of the best users I've encountered. That's one of the great things about the traffic you get from Product Hunt is these people are very helpful. They're often, loving checking out new products if they're not Product Hunt launchers themselves. So you get a lot of great feedback, even if you don't get a massive amount of customers from it. But that went well. So I started building software. I actually transitioned my career at that time into product management. And so I started building software products in the enterprise space. Had some success with that with the company that I was working for, but quickly I was getting tired of the corporate bureaucracy. And then around this time, actually in 2023, actually April or maybe May of 2023, I connected with a guy named Ross Flutterjohn, a successful agency owner, digital marketing agency basically, as well as many other things that he's done in the past 10 years on his own. And this was just around the time when AI was really kicking off. This is, I think, right before GPT-4 came out, or maybe right after. Anyway, Ross and I were talking because I found him through Notifier. He made a video about my product, and it generated a massive amount of traffic for it. So we started talking and exchanging ideas and talking about the concept of maybe building a software company together. And then I went to India on a project for the company that I was working for. And for whatever reason, I was meeting with a lot of these entrepreneurs at that time, and it just really inspired me. And Ross and I connected. I was actually in a hotel room in India. I will never forget this, but I said, you know what? It's just time to do it. If I don't quit corporate, if I don't get out of the corporate environment, do my own thing, I'll always regret it. So Ross and I connected, we came up with a plan. He had an idea for a tool, and that is basically how Stammer AI, our primary product, was born. It was a little over a year ago. Initially, it was just Ross and myself, but we quickly put a team together. A lot of these people came from the development side of Notifier. So we assembled those people together with the people that Ross had worked with on what he was working, his agency, essentially. And we got together, launched this thing in like a month, maybe a few weeks, I think is when the MVP, and the rest is history. We've been acquiring new customers, really taking off ever since then. So Stammer is kind of my, day job at this point. Now, interestingly, we have other products as well. And it was always the plan to create a company that has a suite of products, actually. And so one of those, of course, is Notifier, like I was just talking about. That has been absorbed into this company now. And then, of course, Stammer, like I just talked about. But also, we have a product called ColdScrape that I'm going to talk about later in this video that we are currently launching. We built it directly with the company for them in many ways, but also keeping in mind use cases that other customers might have. So we'll talk about that. But URL-to-text actually was originally created as part of Stammer. So Stammer actually has this web scraper that we use to scrape websites for our customers on their behalf, and then pull down just the relevant content from that site in order to kind of train an LLM on their site's data. And I was actually the one who originally wrote the code for that. But that is where URL-to-text kind of comes from, is that. And what I had to do at one point was create a simple tool to help users debug some of the issues with the scrapers, because occasionally they would come to sites that it couldn't scrape and they would say, hey, why can't I test this? Or why is this happening? And so I created that as part of that. That's where URL-to-text comes from. And originally the code was actually not exactly the same, but it was the exact same approach. Now they diverged a little bit, and URL-to-text actually has more features than the Stammer web scraper. And we're actually going back and retroactively adding those features to the Stammer web scraper because customers have now asked for those. But that is how URL-to-text was kind of born. And let's talk about the Product Hunt launch. So the Product Hunt launch went well. It went well. I wouldn't say it went amazingly well. It was within the top 10 products of the day. That's great. So it was between 7, 6, and I think at one point it got to about 5. And let me show you actually the traffic that was. So we got 117 upvotes. And then if we go to Matomo is kind of like Google Analytics, but a little bit more featured. And you'll see that it generated only 236 visits. Of those, 231 were unique. So not a massive amount of traffic, even though it was in the top 10 products of the day. Now, some of that might be because I chose to launch on a Saturday. Now, why did I do that? Why did I launch on a Saturday? Well, I was thinking that even though that's a lower traffic time, right? There's not as many people looking at Product Hunt on a Saturday. I figured that it would also help it have less stiff competition, right? Because not as many people would be launching products on Saturday. And that honestly may have been the case. Maybe that's why it was able to get into the top 10. I'm not sure. But regardless, not a massive amount of traffic was generated from that. I wish I remembered how much traffic was generated with the Notifier for Reddit Product Hunt launch 5 or 6 years ago, but it was a lot more, I think. Anyway, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, what is more interesting though is I did get a lot of feedback from potential users. And what I did is, let me show you actually, for this, I tried to make this as simple as possible, right? The technologies behind this are just Django, HTMX, and then I'm using Tailwind for this instead of normal CSS. And I'm actually loving Tailwind. I'm loving HTMX, super easy to use. Claude AI knows actually quite a lot about HTMX, so it makes it super easy to code with it. And so what I did is I actually put a feedback form on here. So one person reported, or actually two, I believe, reported they were having issues using it. It wasn't returning any content for them. I then tried it and I was not getting that issue. So I'm not quite sure what that could have been. So I definitely recommend putting a feedback form, obviously, on anything you launch. I use Tally for this to make it very, very easy. Tally.so, love it. So definitely suggest you use it. Pricing is amazing. Form builders are ridiculously expensive, by the way. You have no idea how expensive some form builders are, or maybe you do. Anyway, Tally is very reasonably priced. I also put this here, want an API, let me know here. And I actually received 5 or 6 responses, surprisingly, already from that. And many people do seem to want an API for this. Ross and I are actually going to talk later today about next steps for this. Because who knows, there could be some legs to this thing. Maybe we can throw up an API, obviously charge per request in some way, have some type of API plan. And a lot of people seem to want to use it to use with their AI project. So web scraping, as you may already be aware, if you don't know, you should know that web scraping is very, very difficult to do, especially at scale. But so a lot of people seem to want to use it for that. They also want the ability to support multiple URLs. It's interesting, I didn't anticipate that, even though, of course, the Stammer one already does that. So that could be another interesting functionality that we could add to this. But that's it. So as far as next steps with URL-to-text, we are going to continue investing some time in it, see if we can get some monetization around it, and then find out if we can get a sustainable customer acquisition channel around it. that works without taking up too much of our time, right? Because Stammer is still taking off. That's our main project right now. And interestingly, we're actually launching another product on Product Hunt later this week, most likely. And that is actually ColdScrape. So let me pull that up. I thought I had that. Yes, here we go. So here is the pre-launch dashboard for ColdScrape. Now, some of this may change and stuff, some of the taglines we have here. And as you can see, it's already been reviewed and it's kind of ready to go. Probably going to reschedule the launch for later this week, later in the week, I mean. But this is a project that helps you generate leads by scraping local business listings. And so this project actually got started in a really interesting way. A customer reached out to us, described to us what they wanted to do, and the use case made complete sense for us. So they wanted to know if we could build this with them, kind of for them. And we did that over a couple of weeks, actually, and we built it. And we'd always intended to kind of launch it and market it right at that point. But we actually got distracted with a lot of the development work we were doing at that time for Stammer, because that's exactly when Stammer kind of started taking off like crazy. And we had to, all hands on deck, focus entirely on Stammer, and we kind of left ColdScrape in the dust. But now we are dusting it off, actually. We think we have Stammer in a good situation now. The team is working really, really well together. We're getting more customers, every single day who are paying. And so now we think it's actually a good time to launch this. But that's it. That is kind of how this Product Hunt launch went. As far as after this, after we get ColdScrape launched on Product Hunt and after we see how that goes, I actually do have another small side project that I'm working on that's actually an interesting one. This is not necessarily a traditional software product, although it is. It does have a code component. I've written some code for it. But it's all about helping you know where to market your startup. What sites should you share it on? Which does it make sense to even share it on based on the traffic of that site and other characteristics about it that are important to consider. So that's what this interesting product is all about. And it's, of course, solving my own pain point, really, that I've had to do over the past few months with these little small side projects I've been working on. So stay tuned for that. Let me know if you're interested in that. I'd love to kind of give a few people beta access to that. And as always, if you guys have any more questions about the Product Hunt launch, if you have any, if you want any advice on your own Product Hunt launch, let me know. I can definitely do it. Thank you very much and have a great day.